Becca, I am excited about this episode because we get to talk about something that I've wanted to talk for a while about, and that is stim dancing.
Ah,
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, I could about just what's your kind of experience with dancing in your life?
I don't have a lot of good experience with dancing. I'm not somebody, I have dyspraxia with my autism, so I'm not somebody who's wholly in control of all of my body parts at all times. So a lot of times I want them to look and do things a certain way, and they don't actually come out that way. And so that sort of affected my life in terms of dancing, in terms of like a lot of sports were difficult for me, things like that. But I am not somebody who is comfortable enough in my body to dance. Isn't that interesting?
I I I would agree with that for myself. I'm definitely not as comfortable, so I am really envious of people that are.
Yeah,
And and I need things like step by step. Like I need a lot of structure, so I can learn to do a dance. But if you want me to like dance, like
just dance,
just
right?
dance, like my body just doesn't. It's like
Yeah,
frozen.
exactly. I feel exactly the same way. I'm like, even if I like try to, I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted it to look like or feel like. And so, no, I've never really had any pleasure from it, but I know that a lot of people do. For a lot of people, that's kind of the way that they stim the best, right? And so I think that is interesting to talk about it because I wonder if I'm capable of it, but just not comfortable enough in my own body to do it. So I'm curious to find out what it's like. All right, so let's see if we can't figure this out with our guest. So please welcome our guest, Naomi. She is here to talk to us about stim dancing because it works for her.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. So for me, funnily, I have the same experience, but I started dancing freely, also in front of my camera, recording it for myself. And then I sent it to my former partner. So just for some fun and show them my, for me, funny moves. And also goofing around a lot, which helps me with my performance pressure somehow. And I have the same experience with not really being connected to my body and also feeling that it doesn't come out as expected. But then again, when I started recording it, it was an interesting experience because I balanced my way through the on one hand the performance pressure as I said, and on the other hand the relaxation that comes from it, and also maybe a psychological process somehow that I felt that it doesn't matter really, like it doesn't matter if it's in a way that people would find beautiful or aesthetic or anything. And at first I was a bit surprised because I thought, oh, well, it feels good and all. And then I looked at my recordings and thought, oh no, this is shameful. And then I just kept going and danced and danced and danced, and also like being very in a moment of the music and somehow being immersed in that experience and not think about the moves or the movement a lot, but at the same time a bit interweaving the reflection of it, like looking in the mirror or looking at the recording and then reflecting and finding the balance between the feeling of it and the looks of it. And I felt that the practice, the just doing and doing and doing and looking at it and just being comfortable in my physical movements connected me to it, because the just thinking about it would 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 not lead to the same results as just yeah, I don't know, the usual saying that practice makes masters.
Right.
It maybe doesn't apply that much to me. Like, I'm not a professional dancer, but I felt that the movements I wanted to do would flow out more naturally in the result of that process.
So interesting.
Yeah.
We were talking about dancing and maybe not being connected to our bodies. I'm also wondering, Naomi, I've been thinking about this, and I'm wondering, like, for me, like with dancing, I feel like I'm concerned about the judgment of others. So I'm wondering, do you see like Stim dancing as a way? Is it more about not being connected with your body? Is masking also involved? Like, where do you see all of this connecting to one another?
The connection to masking is very interesting to me. It's a new thought, so I have to think about it at first. Can you explain a bit further what your imagination of it is?
Yeah, I just wonder if it's my body not being able to like initiate those movements, or is it more that I'm afraid of how I'll be perceived?
Yeah.
So my body almost like doesn't move based on that psychological,
like you're
factor.
psychologically frozen and can't.
Psychologically frozen versus physically frozen, because I like things like movement. Like, I'm a long distance runner. When I was younger, I played basketball and my body can move in those ways. So I was just wondering if like masking was, and that psychological aspect was maybe the reason why I wouldn't be able to have those free flowing movements in dance.
I think so, yes, maybe because when I think about it, part of the process was, it feels a bit like unmasking, especially as I started publishing it on my Instagram account, at first on a private account, and then I made my account public. So it was like confronting the deep fear of being perceived.
Right.
I'd like to just flow around the world as a ghost, not being perceived. But at the same time, this anxiety can also be interpreted as an excitement, because it's very like the rush of wow, people can watch me dancing. It's so vulnerable. Yeah. And but I felt that I became more comfortable in that, because really it doesn't really matter if it's like if I have the expectation that people like idealize me and see, wow, those movements are so fascinating and everything. It's not really realistic, because even if I was a professional dancer, people could be very critical of it, and like watching every tiny movement and everything. And in professional dancing, it's like that. But this is also very precious, because it is a clear reflection and also a very detailed reflection. And part of this unmasking process for me was also not identifying with it, but the movements being not like me. I'm doing the movements, and my body is moving and everything, and people can perceive me. But if people like identify myself with this, it's yeah, this is not my not my fundament of reality.
Right.
Because I can just goof around and everything, and it changes all the time. And I can do this movement, I can do this movement. And also people, I think, sometimes have expectations of movements looking exactly like this. And if it's not exactly like this, they can become judgmental and say, no, you're doing it wrong. But also maybe Stim dancing is a kind of protest against these rigid expectations, because dancing is a like some liberating thing, and you can just be, and you're not policed in your movements.
Right.
Because the being policed is also, I mean, if someone would grab me and say, no, you're doing it wrong, it's something different. But if people just look at me very critical, I have the responsibility to not act accordingly. Like if people look at me critically and I just stop moving, then I'm being part of this. But if I just keep moving and like some celebration of myself and my ability to move, I can choose that somehow. Yeah.
There's no rules to Stim dancing. There's no right way to do it or whatever. And so because of that, it's very freeing. That's really kind of neat.
And Naomi, on your Instagram, where it shows your Stim dancing videos, right next to the video is poetry that some great poetry that you've created.
Thank you.
What do you see between the connection of Stim dancing and poetry for you?
For me, maybe people say that the creative process has much to do with the subconscious. I'm very interested in these topics as well. Like if we say neurodiversity, it also has to do with neurological processes and psychology and cognitive sciences, and it's all interwoven. But in art, I feel it's maybe has to do with the feeling of flow. Like something inside of me feels like I can't really put my finger on it. What is this feeling? And then I let go and just find my outlet, like writing and dancing and everything. It's not, I'm planning something and then it comes out. This can also be achieved somehow, but for me, it feels somehow like therapy. I don't know, that I just let go and just let it out. And don't judge it. Maybe I can reflect on it afterwards, like reflect on the intention and the impact of it has, but it's afterwards. Like I'm trying to separate these processes. Like the creative process at first, the raw process is just flowing, and the afterwards process, then I can just let it loose and just I can be very critical afterwards. I can, if I want to, but it shouldn't interrupt the process per se. And for me, this is also a nice practice to not police my own movements or also my writing movements and everything. Because then it feels like I'm trying something, and then the judgmental thoughts come, and then I don't do anything anymore. And it's like, oh no, now I'm very afraid of doing something wrong and everything, and it's very emotional. But I feel that somehow through the creative processes, may they be writing or dancing, moving, goofing around, and also somehow singing or vocal stimming. They can be a way to not do that, you know? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think it's so interesting because as a writer, I do similarly. Like if I'm creating something from scratch, if I'm writing something from scratch, the rule of thumb is just to write. You're not supposed to edit as you're going, right? You're just supposed to write. And when you're done writing, then you can go back and edit. And so it seems like a similar kind of process for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, your poetry, I really enjoyed it. I wanted to talk about one thing that you wrote in one of your poems, and seeing if maybe you can kind of expand on it a little bit. You were talking about the autistic community, and you said, "We are a hereditary culture of nonverbal ways of perception and of self-regulation."
Yeah. Well, I try to wrap this up. It feels like those intuitive movements or processes, like also somehow isolating yourself, being alone, and just I don't know. Yeah, the self-regulation, the stimming movements, and also going non-verbal. They are, I feel, also taught in spiritual communities, like mindfulness and everything. I I had a good laugh when I watched a video about mindfulness therapy. Somehow they had a group gathering and people got some raisins, and they should really focus on the experience, the sensual experience, like putting it in your mouth and feeling how sweet it is and everything. And also I think those are called skills. I heard about borderline therapy, BPD therapy, where you got skills also in trauma therapy, that you smelled something or tasted something that tastes really spicy. And also those sensual experiences in touching something that is maybe spiky. And I felt that autistics do something like this intuitively, but it's also, it depends on the social context, but also sometimes policed, like don't do that. It doesn't have a template, a social template, yeah, like you not a framework. You are supposed to focus on this in this situation, and it's all it's very outside expectation. But if you just accept your intuitive tendencies and also your necessities, or what you call this, I feel that's the emotional regulation that is maybe in so-called neurotypical world achieved through social group co-regulation, that autistics do this intuitively on their own, like the emotional regulation, and just getting back to their inner sanctuary maybe, or the middle point, the balance. And I feel this is maybe also political a bit. Like if we accept this, we can learn a lot from it. Like if you think the mindfulness therapy, why not get inspired by autistics, what they do?
Right.
Also autistic children, what they would do like arranging their toys instead of playing with them the way they are expected to, why not just enjoy this?
Right.
Like grouping their toys in color themes. And it's
Like
very
I talk,
interesting to me. Yeah.
yeah, I talk a lot about how autistics, our joy is taken from us. Like
Yeah.
where it's sort of stolen from us because the way we experience joy is so different, and we experience it about different things, that we get criticized about our, you know, and judged about our joy. And so reconnecting with that is really important, I think, and remembering that there is no right or wrong way to experience joy.
Yeah. Also the silence, like not speaking, is also, if you're in the I would say right social context, like as I said, spirituality or maybe Zen Buddhism, it's treated very differently, and maybe something like in those contexts, people would say this is something holy and this should be a goal.
Right.
Like but in another social context, it's like pathologized, and people would say, no, you have to speak. But why do you have to speak? Why do you have to verbalize everything? Because I talk to other autistics that say sometimes speaking ruins something, like a peaceful, and also the being very connected to the central world, which is very direct. Like this is the now experience, the being in the moment, and the moment we start to speak, we can also become detached from it, because we project an idea world onto the real world now.
Yep. Yeah, like we mess it up. The minute we start to talk about it, or talk, period, we ruin the beauty of what it is by itself. Yeah, I agree.
Naomi, are there any passions of yours or special interests we haven't talked about yet?
I besides art and those processes, I like the topics of communication very much, because it's such a complex field, or many fields, and also trying to build bridges between the worlds of different people. And also I find social dynamics very interesting, because for me, I feel sometimes a bit alien. I felt that for a long time, but this feels something like I have a starting point, which is empty, like an observer in the world, and I'm being confronted with a group, and then I see this and this and this, and I talk to the people, and they have their ideas and expectations in their heads, and oftentimes they project them onto other people, or they have an expectation bar, a set bar, and when other people are divergent from that, they it's like, this is bad, this is good. But I also like to maybe combine this, because if I think about everyone being right in their own way, it's so interesting to me, because I feel that like everyone sees a different aspect of reality, and also with their different perspectives. Sometimes the shared reality is maybe what do you say? It's a word similar to bizarre, like maybe a bit it feels twisted somehow, but it's also at the same time true.
Right.
Only because you see it from with different glasses or goggles, you could say.
Right.
And this is so interesting to me because people fight over things a lot, and also very passionately, and also sometimes very aggressively. But when I think about some spiritual communities, which I find very interesting because they sometimes have so different perspectives from the typical normative mainstream, very rational, very verbal ways of life. They also the non-verbal word, and then I have lost my thread of the talking.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, Naomi, are there particular spiritual communities that really you identify with or have had an effect on you?
Actually, not very much. I went to 2 or 3 different workshops. One that was very interesting to me because it had to do a lot with communication and everything, and also with topics that I found very difficult for me personally, was Tantra, but the right Tantra, like the theory of it, the theory of communication between people. It can also be in a non-sexual encounter where people meet, and the boundary awareness is so high, and also the very somehow strict rules, but it's not very rigid, but the strict rules of shared responsibility, like for example, to make it simple, when I want something, I have to communicate it, but at the same time I have to leave the room open for other people not meeting those expectations, and also taking full accountability of this communication, which I found very interesting in a autistic framework, because I feel that autistics often have a difficulty with the communication that is like expectations not being very clearly communicated. So I found those inspirations very, very healthy. Like also the boundary of awareness that I can't expect other people to meet my expectations, but also not read my expectations. And I found it funny because autistics often are being somehow pathologized for not being able to read those expectations. But I thought, why are we expected to read it when it's not clearly communicated? Right. Also the topic of direct communication or non-violent communication. And it was somehow a healing experience for me because all my life I was so baffled or somehow or irritated or confused by am I doing something wrong? But maybe I just can't cope with the indirect communication thing, but it is not actually expected from me just by specific people, and it's also a cultural thing maybe as well. Yeah,
I thought about that part.
Well, we're coming near the end, Naomi. We always end each episode of Info Dump with something called Inside the Autistic Studio, which is 11 questions we ask each guest just to get to know you a little bit better. So the first question is, what are your pronouns?
I like every pronoun actually. I like the framework of just saying my name. Or also I like when people talk to me directly, then they don't need pronouns. They just say you. And also making it difficult for other people to talk about me when they don't have pronouns, because they would have to say in every sentence, Naomi, 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 Naomi. So I thought maybe this can be a nice way to maybe stop gossiping about other people. but actually I was grown up with she and her, but I also like it when people say he or him, because it feels like this is another part of me. Like I identify as non-binary or genderqueer and every gender fluid and everything, and it feels more realistic for me. But also I like they, them, especially if people don't know my pronouns. It's it should be they, them per se. Yeah.
What is your preferred stem?
My preferred stem is the stem that comes out naturally, but also some kind of flowing thing. I'm also I like my body to surprise me. Like it's very rare situation I feel nowadays that I become aware of my stems after I did them. Like sometimes I feel a bit irritated or anything, or like blah, and then I do something, or I'm gesturing wildly, or I don't know, I don't have the camera on, so you don't see my gestures, but yeah, also dancing, of course.
What's your favorite curse word?
Curse word. I don't know, maybe creative ones that don't feel like they are used a lot. Like what's that called? Like words that are used a lot are like shit or anything. But I like to get creative with it, and just the emotion of it all being in the sounds of the words, but just using any word which can become a curse word. Yeah.
Who do you love and what are you doing about it?
Sorry?
Who do you love and what are you doing about it?
I try to love myself as well, but I feel sometimes it's I'm so used to it that I love my partner very much. But, I love learning, which is not a who, but so somehow it feels like a who, because this feeling of learning is makes me so full of life that I feel I'm very connected to life when I'm learning, because I'm not identifying with a fixed state of things. And what do I do about it? I try to let go of fixed states and just accept it, and try to improvise. Like when it comes to my partner, I try to not get fixed in my mind, but like writing little notes or doing something that I think could be helpful, and also asking a lot of questions, because it's at the same time I'm learning a lot when I'm asking questions, which is double good. But also I feel it's an act of love to let go a bit of my fixed mind and connect to something or someone in that process.
These next two are fill-in statements. You
Fill in.
may be neurotypical if.
Maybe neurotypical if there wasn't any framework of putting people in like categories. I don't know, and would be neurotypical if I would be neurotypical if autism was the mainstream. Then this would be neurotypical.
You may be autistic
if I'm very authentic and not trying to play a role, then I'm very autistic.
What's something you want to learn or to be better at?
I think learning per se, because I love the process of learning, and I like to is that a word in English, catalyze? Like catalyze the processes of learning and feeling the rush of learning without me projecting something onto things, but being so immersed in things that I feel that the aspects of them and also the patterns of them, they flow into me somehow. Yeah.
What autistic social media account should people be paying attention to?
Fishes and fries.
All right. I never heard of that. I'm gonna go look for it myself.
Yeah. What's one thing in your routine you couldn't possibly live without?
I think I'm afraid of it a lot of times, but improvisation. Like I think a part of my routine has to be improvisation, because otherwise I would just become zombie-like, maybe, and with no surprises.
Dog, cat, or must I choose?
What is the third one?
It's I'll say it again. Dog, cat, or must I choose?
I think it depends on the context, because if there's a cat that is very hostile to me and I'm forced to be in a room with them, then or it could be a dog as well, but I think a hostility, which is a lot of times because they had bad experience and everything, when I'm in a cramped room with many of them, then I wouldn't choose them. But if it's for example, a dog that is very friendly and not attacking someone out of fear or anything, or could also be a cat. It depends really on the individual animal, I think.
And our last question, what does autistic joy mean to you?
A big party, but not a party with many people in a cramped room, but it's like the raw joy that just, it feels like a big rush, and also everything is beautiful, and also everything is not only fine, but I can't put words on it. It feels like a an explosion and implosion at the same time. It's very beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your spoons and your energy and your time, and kind of teaching us a little bit about what it means to Stim dance versus regular dancing, because I think it's a really big difference now that I've heard about it, and maybe I won't be so scared to do it.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for spending time with us today. That's the end of this episode of Info Dump, and we'll see you next time.